A child's foundation is the bedrock to success, a vital stage of life that should be prioritized. The overall well-being of children, their physical and emotional development and social skills are important founding factors in ensuring their success for the future. Early childhood education is the most vital component of development, helping children form cognitive and language skills as well as social and emotional competency. Enhanced focus and attention on this critical stage of a child's development has thus become a major priority for education stakeholders and civil society organizations across the Southern African development community. With statistics showing that slightly more than 1/4 of children between the age of 3 and 5 in Africa attend some form of early childhood education, we believe that increasing the percentage of those who have access to early childhood education on the continent could help reduce socio-economic gaps in education. The Zimbabwe Network of Early Childhood Development Actors, ZINECDA, has been pivotal to push this agenda that recognizes and acknowledges the importance of early child learning. Since its inception in 2012, ZINECDA has been an important vehicle and conduit to bring government and funders together to discuss increased programming and the funds to run the programs, as well as the development of a manual to guide new preschools. One of the focal areas which ZINECDA has been spearheading tackles the central issue of ECD financing in Zimbabwe and the desirable status which lobbies government to subsidize fees and levies paid by parents as contained in the Education Amendment Act, which provides for a basic state-funded education. Through engagements with the parliamentarians and government, ZINECDA has sought to unpack the status of ECD financing in Zimbabwe, identifying key gaps that need urgent intervention if the targets of universal access to education are to be attained. The strengthened civil society organizations will engage in transnational advocacy to make governments in Southern Africa more transparent and accountable to their citizens on ECD issues. Aptly captured under the banner The Road to SADC, there is consensus that early learning should form the agenda at the 42nd SADC Heads of State Summit to be held later this year.
We are trying to ensure that the SADC itself, as you know, that SADC stands for Southern African Development Committee. We are saying it is time that our leaders, they themselves say, okay, let us meet as leaders of our countries and say that when it comes to ECDE, there should be better financing, because we know that with every program intervention that needs to be implemented, there's financing. And when it comes to financing of ECDE even in Africa, it is still very minimal. I'll make an example of my country. It is like less than 1% of the allocated education budget. So we are saying, you, the decision makers, we know that if it is you who says, collectively, let's say, if you say collectively, let us finance ECDE, we know that it will happen. So we are trying to communicate with the SADC leaders and say, can we do a top-down approach, because it seems that the bottom-up approach is not working when it comes to financing of ECDE.
Our action comes based on the experiences that we have regarding provision of early childhood development services to the children of the SADC region countries. For example, in Malawi, where I'm coming from, you find out that access to early childhood development education component is at about half of the targeted children. About 50% of the children accessing this service And this is almost a trend in most SADC countries. So with this observation, we feel as a TRANAC project consortium, we feel it's worth bringing together the SADC countries to take action in improving the provision of quality early childhood development education, especially the component of early learning to the children that are in our countries within the SADC region. So yeah, we have issues like inadequate infrastructure, whereby we have some communities which do not have the required infrastructure to facilitate this process of providing early childhood development education. But also in some parts of SADC, like in Malawi, we depend on volunteers as teachers for early childhood development. So our coming together as countries of the SADC, for instance, our coming to Zimbabwe to appreciate how they manage the provision of early childhood development education component, whereby we have learned that it's part of the government system for the primary education, whereby ECDE is part of the education service. This is something that we have learned. So possibly we need to share experiences, we need to share strategies that we have within SADC to find out how best we can improve the provision of this service.
Research by the civil society organizations has identified the critical gaps on learning facilities for early childhood learners as well as qualified teaching staff in both urban and rural areas. The desire is to attract more donor support towards provision of decent learning facilities for early learners.
We have identified steps and milestones that need to be done in order for ECD to be put as an agenda for the Council of Ministers of Education and also for the Council of Ministers of Youth, and also through them, because we can't go to the SADC summit without the Council of Ministers. And with that, they will report what we want to the summit, which is the heads of states or heads of governments. But the issues which are there are what we want to do through the 6 SADC countries is to influence that ECD, being the most important foundation of all learning, needs to be prioritized. So what we have identified is who do we want to meet and who do we want to influence so that ECD is put as a priority, because in the education and training protocol for SADC, there's nothing mentioned. And in most of the most important documents of education, it's not appearing in any.
Support by key players such as the Global Platform for Education, the Campaign for Female Education, COMFED, the Africa Early Childhood Network, UNICEF, and UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa have been instrumental to spearhead discussions on early learning. Crucial deliberations by the TRANAC consortium have set the ball rolling to unite and advocate for governments in Southern Africa to be more transparent and accountable to their citizens on ECDE issues.
In 2015, UNESCO came up with Education for All, and Education for All it's holistic, it's inclusive. It means everyone should get education. And as I will keep referring back to my country, with our education policies, it says a child should get access to education from 3 years, and we are saying every child, whether the child has disability or not, it should be inclusive, and we need to ensure that even those with disabilities, because a disability does not mean an inability, and we have the child protocol in SADC. It has to clearly indicate that even those little ones, whether they have disability or not, they should be enrolled in schools. So it is all those issues that we are hoping will be included in the children's protocol, the SADC children's protocol.
We wanted to include in the draft children's protocol, which is being done by the Youth Ministers Council. We want, if it is okay, to insert a paragraph or an article into that children's article in part 4. But that will not be enough. It's a good step, but we would also want, because most of the ECD issues are dealt with, especially in the ministries of education. So we would want a very concerted policy framework or legislative or protocol instrument that can be spearheaded by the ministers of education. So what we are going to do, or what we have started, is we have started a study to develop a concept which details why it is important for ECD to be situated or located in the education space, but that is to put it as an agenda. And that's what the steps that we have taken. And we wanted consensus on that, so that it's not a Zimbabwean one, it's not only a Malawian one, but it's all the countries. We are 6 now, but we know we wanted to add other people so that they come in, so that we move together as a bloc.
Researchers concur that early childhood development has become a major priority in the SADC region. Many children in the region are denied early childhood education and development due to cost and access. While policy has been developed by a number of SADC countries on early childhood development, it remains an area that still requires prioritization in terms of allocation of resources. In a number of countries, governments have developed policy and legislation around ECD, yet it remains largely provided by the private sector, churches and other institutions at a cost which is prohibitive to the majority of children. This has created a bridge between a rural and urban learner. Zimbabwe, Zambia, Eswatini, Lesotho and Namibia are among the few SADC countries that have begun to finance provision of ECD for ages 4 and upward through developing curriculum, training of personnel and infrastructure. However, there still remain vacuums on prioritizing key areas such as out-of-school programs and improving learning outcomes.
The issue of ECD in our country is becoming a target area, and in fact, it's a paradigm shift. Can I just say that for a long time we have been focusing on any other sectors like primary and secondary. Nowadays, studies and research have shown that there's need that we should start building the foundation properly so that you could be successful. This is why now the focus is on ECD. And in fact, it has been there, but it was coming in small, particularly for those people who had enough money to send their children to specific schools. But nowadays it's actually growing into most communities. But it is shouldered by individuals, it's shouldered by small communities, and even here the civil societies are coming in. So, but we are appreciating that effort that is coming there. But the government is coming very slowly on it, and we understand because it's a new phenomenon and there's this new paradigm shift, so we are aware. But we appreciate the fact that we are beginning to see its importance, and we are also soliciting funding from other partners to assist us in order to achieve this particular goal.
Advocacy towards early childhood learning is expanding within the region as more nations put weight behind early childhood learning. The Southern Africa Network for Early Childhood Development is now the expanded version of the Road to SADC, roping in an additional 7 countries including South Africa, Botswana, the Comoros, Mauritius, Mozambique, Madagascar, and Namibia. With more voices coming on board, the realization of SDG 4, which promotes equality in education, is now inching a step closer. It is possible. It can be done. Let us all rise to invest in our children to achieve inclusive, equitable, and sustainable development for the present and future generations.